Every single year, there is always a couple of head coaches who head into the season with a ton of pressure. And a lot of the times, those head coaches who do not have success in that year will end up getting fired. So in today's video, I want to talk about 5 NFL head coaches who are under a ton of pressure and may potentially be fired by the end of the season. So as I mentioned, we're going to be talking about some head coaches who potentially could be fired by the end of the year. And before I actually get into my top 5 list, let me go ahead and give you guys one honorable mention. That honorable mention will be Brian Daboll. Now, me personally, I think Brian Daboll is a really good head coach, and I think he's the perfect type of coach for a team like the New York Giants. But unfortunately, he hasn't had the success that he had in his rookie season. He's in his 3rd year, has a record of 15-18 and 1 tie, and has only made the playoffs 1 time. And obviously, last year was a big catastrophe in comparison to the previous year. So in 2024, if he has another down year, I can definitely see a world where he potentially gets fired. Now, before we actually hop into the video, around 90% of you guys who watch my content aren't subscribed. So make sure you guys hit the like and subscribe button if you go on to enjoy today's video. But let's get into the list. Starting off at number 5, we will be discussing Dennis Allen of the New Orleans Saints. Now, similar to Brian Daboll, he is also entering into his 3rd year as an NFL head coach with the New Orleans Saints. And unfortunately for him, it just hasn't really turned out to be all that great. Now, I don't want to put all the blame on Dennis Allen. You got to put some of the blame on the front office for not putting together a roster that can seriously compete in a pretty okay division. But with that being said, I don't think Dennis Allen has done himself really any favors, honestly. Like, yes, he could put together a decent defense, but the team in general just kind of lacks a great direction or a young mind who's helping this team get to a certain spot. Dennis Allen kind of just feels like a bridge gap head coach that unless he can prove that he's not that type of guy, I think eventually he's going to get replaced with somebody who's a bit more younger, maybe a little bit more unproven, with a lot more potential to be a more offensive genius type of guy. Because as I mentioned, I feel like the course has kind of been ran on Dennis Allen. Like, yes, he could put together a good defense, but when it comes down to it, he's not going to lead the Saints team that is pretty relatively okay built to any sort of playoff spot or any sort of serious run. Now, I will say this, I do think one thing that does favor Dennis Allen is that the front office of New Orleans typically is willing to give a coach or a player a lot of time to sort of prove themselves as whatever they may be doing. So for somebody like Dennis Allen, even though a lot of people are calling for his job like today and in the future, I don't think that's really going to influence the decision of the Saints front office, even if it doesn't really pan out to how they expect it. I honestly wouldn't be shocked if he's able to keep his job because of how patient that front office really is. Now, if it was me personally, I would have fired Dennis Allen this offseason. Again, I don't think he was ever really a good hire. I think that he's just an average guy who's just an average head coach in this league. And to be honest with you, you're not going to succeed with an average head coach. Through his first 2 years, he has a combined record of 16-18 and has not made the playoffs. And this is with a Saints team that is in one of the worst divisions in the league. In fact, in my opinion, it is the worst division in the league. So you're going up against the likes of the Panthers, who aren't good anymore, the Falcons, who are just good this year, and then of course the Buccaneers, who have been able to win the divisions, but they're not this end-all be-all great team. So for Dennis Allen, he doesn't really have anything kind of going for him in terms of why he should keep his job, and I kind of think that his job could potentially be up after the season. Next up, let's talk about number 4, Mike McCarthy with the Dallas Cowboys. Now, he is entering year number 5 and has actually been a really solid head coach for the Cowboys in the regular season, because through his first 4 years, he has a combined record of 42 wins and 25 losses and has put the Cowboys in a lot of really good positions. And honestly, if you take away his rookie season as a head coach with the Cowboys, which was the same year that Dak Prescott got injured, we're talking about a guy who's put up some really awesome numbers, at least statistically, in the win-loss categories with the Dallas Cowboys. But unfortunately for him, the Dallas Cowboys don't care about regular season success. They only care about the playoffs. And unfortunately for Mike McCarthy, he doesn't have really a case to be said there. He's only 1-3 in the playoffs. And after last year's debacle against the Green Bay Packers, it feels like both the Cowboys and the Cowboys fan base is just kind of tired of Mike McCarthy as their head coach. Again, he could lead this team to another 12-win season, and I don't really think it matters. At the end of the day, they have got to win some games in the playoffs, or he's just not going to have a job next year. The Dallas Cowboys have way too much talent and way too much on the line this upcoming season to just kind of let Mike McCarthy suck. So if he's not good and this team isn't going in the right direction halfway through the season, I definitely can see a world where potentially Mike McCarthy were to get fired mid-season. Especially when we're talking about guys like Mike Vrabel and Bill Belichick being on the open market looking for head coaching jobs. If a guy like Mike McCarthy struggles this year, I can definitely see a world where he gets fired pretty soon. Again, Mike McCarthy, in my opinion, has kind of been unfairly judged because I think he's been really solid for this team in the regular season, but man, those playoff losses, in my opinion, are just really really inexcusable. There's too much talent and there's too much pressure that he has just not been able to get the job done, and unfortunately, I think his time may be up after this season. However, at number 3, let's talk about Nick Sirianni of the Philadelphia Eagles. Similar to Mike McCarthy, this is a guy who actually has a pretty solid track record with this Eagles team, but God almighty, the end of last year was, in my opinion, maybe the worst brand of Eagles football that maybe we've ever seen, and definitely maybe the most disappointing stretch of football we've ever seen from this Eagles team, especially in recent years. Nick Sirianni is entering into his 4th year with a combined record of 34-17 and a playoff record of 2-3. Obviously, Nick Sirianni has been, in my opinion, a pretty solid head coach for this Eagles team early on into his tenure. And as we were going into 2023, everything was kind of going smoothly for the Eagles. They're coming off a Super Bowl appearance where they arguably could have won that game. And then halfway through the season, you're sitting there basically undefeated, looking really sharp. And then you have that 49ers loss and the Cowboys loss. And then we all kind of know what ended up happening. It was just a completely uninspiring, embarrassing 1-6 stretch to close out 2023. Not to mention, they also had the loss to the Buccaneers in the wild card matchup, which was just, in my opinion, the cherry on top. And then immediately after that, everyone was calling for Nick Sirianni's job, but the Eagles did decide to keep the job with him. And to be honest with you guys, I think that was the right decision, because in my opinion, you just cannot fire a head coach after he led the team to a Super Bowl, has had a lot of success for them, and then fire them just immediately off of one small stretch of games that didn't go your way. In my opinion, that would have been kind of a bad look for the Eagles, not necessarily to the fans' perspective, but maybe for any prospective head coaches who may be looking for a head coaching job. Like, why would I want to go to an Eagles team that had a head coach who just made it to a Super Bowl and lost and had a bad stretch of like 5-6 games and got fired immediately? That wouldn't be a position where I would feel like I have a lot of job security. So for their sake, they fired their offensive coordinator and their defensive coordinator and surrounded them with a bit more experience with Kellen Moore and Vic Fangio. And I do think as we head into 2024, Nick Sirianni has a really good roster and a decent enough set of coaches to get the job done. But hypothetically speaking, if Nick Sirianni does not get the job done and not have a deep playoff run or not a Super Bowl appearance or something like that, his job is likely over with, and they're going to be looking for a more hands-on tactician type of head coach, similar to maybe a guy like a Bobby Slowick or a Ben Johnson type of guy, who I think would honestly be great fits for this team. However, at number 2, let's talk about Robert Saleh of the New York Jets. This is, in my opinion, the best New York Jets team that we've ever seen under Robert Saleh, and that doesn't really tell you much because this Jets team has been pretty bad, especially offensively, the past couple years. But as we head into year number 4, he has a combined record of 18-33 with no playoff appearances. But again, in my opinion, you really can't judge Robert Saleh because he's had Zach Wilson as his number 1 quarterback the past couple years. But as we head into 2024, you finally have a healthy Aaron Rodgers, and if for whatever reason he were to go down, you have an experienced guy in Tyrod Taylor who's a very solid backup quarterback to go along with the best offensive weapons he's ever had, as well as the best offensive line he's ever had, as well as a defense that is trending in the right direction, especially the past couple years. And similar to Dennis Allen, this guy's been able to put out some really solid defenses, so that's really not why he would get fired. It would just be getting fired because he hasn't done anything. And now he's in a situation where everything kind of seems to be trending in the right direction for him this upcoming season, where the offense looks good, the defense looks good, the coaching staff looks good, and everything, again, is looking really positive. But if for whatever reason this team does not meet the expectations they have, maybe they miss the playoffs, or maybe they're a wild card team that loses in the first round, or maybe they just have a bad year in general, there's a very, very, very good chance that he gets fired really soon. Again, I think Robert Saleh is a good head coach. I don't think he's really been given a fair opportunity, but unfortunately, I don't really think the front office is going to look at it that way. They're definitely going to look at this year and kind of give him like a 1-year trial, and if he gets the job done, he gets the job done, and he gets a long-term extension, or he gets to stay as a head coach for the next couple years. But if it doesn't work out, you better believe that he is going to get fired, and they're going to move on to, again, like a Ben Johnson or a Bobby Slowick type of guy. However, he is not my number 1 head coach, and my number 1 head coach is going to be Matt Eberflus of the Chicago Bears. Matt Eberflus is heading into his 3rd year of the NFL after a 10-24 combined record with obviously no playoff appearances. And in my opinion, this is sort of an interesting one because in a lot of ways, Matt Eberflus as a head coach has kind of been disappointing, but I don't really know what the expectations have been under him. I think that Eberflus's defenses have maybe started to look better as of late, and I think as we head into 2024, the outlook of that defense is actually quite bright. Like, there's a lot of really good players in that defense, and I will say they've developed quite nicely under Eberflus. But the key issue with this Chicago Bears team has been the offense. It just has been non-existent. Justin Fields did not work out for this team, and now you're heading into this year with Caleb Williams, Rome Odunze, Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, some new offensive linemen, DeAndre Swift, and a bunch of new offensive coaches to help your younger guys like Caleb work things out. And if things are to go in the right direction, which I think they will, then I think Matt Eberflus is going to be able to keep the job. But if hypothetically, as for all these head coaches, if they're going to have a maybe mediocre or bad season, there's a very good chance that he's going to lose his job. This was a coach that basically the entire offseason has been getting hinted at that this is a make or break year for him, and by all accounts it seems like the Chicago Bears fan base and the NFL fans are all kind of okay with however the direction the Eberflus spot goes. If Eberflus has, again, a bad year, he's going to get replaced. But if he can prove that he can be a good head coach for this team, then I think he's definitely worthy of keeping the job. Similar to guys like Robert Saleh, he hasn't really had a great opportunity, especially on the offensive end, to really prove what he can do with a full team. But now as he heads into 2024, he's got his best overall roster since his tenure of being a head coach, and he has got to make it work this year right away with a rookie quarterback and a bunch of new pieces. It's got to work immediately or he's not going to have a job for very much longer. But you guys let me know in the comment section below, do you guys agree with the head coaches I talked about in this video? And if there's any other head coaches that I did not mention, let me know in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed, hit the like and subscribe button, and I love you guys. Peace.